I feel like a lot of people are very interested in this app chain thesis. They're very interested and excited when they see already what's existing in Cosmos, Akash's core infrastructure. I'm not aware of other projects and other ecosystems that are so fundamental and so far and so innovative. Osmosis also, right? They pioneered superfluid staking. You don't see that anywhere else. So I think once people start doing their research in Cosmos, they are really hooked and get stuck with the ecosystem. So what do you think for this year, 2023? What is your Cosmos outlook for this year? And how do you guys with Akash want to position yourselves to maybe benefit also in case a Cosmos would really go viral this year?
So, I think like a big challenge for Cosmos is composability. Cosmos systems in general, IBC in general. So if you solve composability, I think we solve a lot of problems in general, right? So IBC ecosystem or Cosmos ecosystem is incredible because it's so diverse in terms of the types of blockchains that you get, and it is extremely usable, right? A lot of these app chains are extremely nice. I mean, Osmosis is beautiful to use, right? But what it lacks is for Akash to cross compose with Osmosis really well. So you have IBC, but it's not as good as Ethereum composability, for example. And it's just very challenging, especially to compose across different systems. Is a distribution systems problem, right? So I think that composability, and we have few ways with shared security, and like there's a lot of work that's happening with composability. I think shared security in whatever form it could be, like mesh security, or it could be like ICS. I'm not going to pick a winner yet. We still yet to see. But I think with a lot of these foundations are just going to make hyper composable systems, and people are going to realize the power. Like, give you an example, what that looks like when you have hyper composed systems, right? When you have interchain accounts actually work, you can essentially have a DAO on Juno, like a DAO on Juno, own a deployment directly on Akash. That means in order to make, because Akash, with interchain accounts, you can have wallets own different assets on different blockchains, right? Deployment being an asset, right? What that means is today a big challenge for DAOs is institutional risk, right? That means it doesn't matter how decentralized an organization is. And say, for example, you're Osmosis, right? Your Osmosis is fundamentally a smart contract, but nobody uses a smart contract directly. Nobody uses a command line. You always use a browser to access Osmosis. That is behind a DNS name, right? That is a big attack vector. So if somebody wants to attack Osmosis, they can attack the DNS, right? So you almost don't want put whoever can attack in a broad way. So you almost don't want a DNS-led attack vector, discovery service. You want a chain-based discovery service. And the way you do that is to have the entire supply chain be fully transparent. The supply chain from production of the code to the deployment of the code. So where Akash can help you is the deployment of the code. So by removing the control from a human being, transition the control where a human being clicks deploy to a DAO doing it automatically after it meets certain conditions, maybe like threshold vote or whatnot, you move the human risk out of the deployment, right? So, and that can happen with strong interchain accounts, with shared security. It's not possible today quite a lot from like Osmosis deploying directly without a human being onto Akash. When you see use cases like that, it'll blow your mind because you never see something like this in Ethereum, right? Ethereum has no workable cloud computing platform. Cosmos is the only ecosystem with a functioning cloud computing, on-chain cloud computing, right? So, and it's so diverse. You see something like Regen, right? Regen has this like carbon credits, right? Like that's so diverse and it really works in Cosmos. And we are seeing quite a lot of applications moving to Cosmos. You're looking at DYDX, you're looking potentially Compound. We're looking at quite a lot of these like chains realizing that we can do a lot more when you have control and sovereignty, and when you have the power of shared code base, right? So I think end of the year composability will get solved. I want to see shared security get solved, and shared security will open up and will lower the barrier of entry for a lot of applications. That will further enhance network effects, and it'll also make Atom the center in terms of value accrual. So I'm super excited. I mean, none of this is financial advice, but I think Atom is going to go top 10 easy. I mean, I don't see it. I think now Ethereum, like Cosmos. I saw a report yesterday. Not sure. I think it was from Tribe Capital that said Cosmos is like the second largest ecosystem after Ethereum in terms of developers, right? It took over Bitcoin actually in terms of development activity. So it's growing, and you don't hear one bad thing about Cosmos. People don't talk bad stuff about Cosmos. People talk bad stuff about everything else. But even like Vitalik said, he has deep respect for Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's very rare to see like people like that appreciate a completely different ecosystem that held to its ethos. People say a lot of things about Jaquan, but one thing you gotta appreciate is the strength in which the values are still upheld. Even till date, without a founder, talks a lot about the fundamental nature of the ecosystem and the system he created and gave to us, right? So it's incredible. I think we had to take a moment to appreciate the people that built the ecosystem and think about the moment when they were in this drawing room and thinking about all these problems that we're seeing today and solving for those problems ahead of time. So I'm incredibly lucky. I think this is the best ecosystem I could ever pick, and we're here to serve the Cosmos ecosystem. We're Cosmos first, we're going to start with decentralization all the way from compute, but also like process decentralization. There's a lot of experimentation that we're doing with groups and whatnot. We're going to be able to export that out to the rest of the ecosystem, right? Hopefully, steer the way people look at organization structures while taking examples from Akash. All the meetings, all the work we do is now public, right? Stored on GitHub, archived, so people can actually like roll back and be like, hey, how did this? Like, you want to start a group? What was the first meeting like? What do people say in those meetings? All that is like public. So it's good to build systems that way.
What would you say is the biggest strength of Cosmos? Is it the amount of active development there, the diversity of the ecosystem? Is it the app chain thesis that might be superior to the Fed protocols out there? What would you say is like the biggest strength in Cosmos?
I mean, I would say two main pillars, which is the developers and the model, right? The developers obviously make the model. The model is the app chain thesis. Very, very similar. It's very analogous to Web 2, right? So you see in Web 2 where Firebase, I helped Firebase launch. I've been part of that whole, I've seen the whole process and I love that, product. The beautiful thing about Firebase is it lets you launch applications rapidly, right? And once you launch an application, you use Firebase to a point where you hit scale, and when you hit scale, you change to a more dedicated database, right? So, but if you don't launch that rapidly and iterate quickly, you will not be able to actually use a dedicated database. So Cosmos' strength is attracting developers that have a lot of experience dealing with Ethereum and hitting its limits, or any fat chain protocol, right? Ethereum just being the biggest one, and understanding the limitation of a fat protocol, now want to actually scale and come to Cosmos. So it's sort of like graduating step for blockchain projects. And the advantage of that is you're going to have very mature developers come actually start on Cosmos, versus on Ethereum anyone can deploy a smart contract. So you see a lot of scams. So with the advantage of Cosmos is it has a very natural selection process without permission. No one's telling you, stopping you from using Cosmos. But in order to use Cosmos, you need to know what the hell you're doing. Without that, you can get in trouble. So that creates a natural selection process that attracts high quality developers to the ecosystem. I think that's an underrated feature of Cosmos ecosystem, the natural selection for high quality developers. And And another big feature is the decentralization nature of it. And I'm like, every day I wake up, I'm like, this is amazing, because like it's not a single leader like makes a decision. In fact, there was a proposal recently in Cosmos that was created by the elders, Zaki and Jack, about the Atom 2.0 that got rejected by the community. And that just tells you how much involved the community is. I mean, again, not to get into nuances as to why it was rejected or whatnot, but that just tells you that this community deeply cares and are very, very active, right? So that decentralization nature is extremely powerful. So when you combine high quality developers and hyper decentralized systems, you get Cosmos. And it's very unique to Cosmos. There's no other ecosystem that has this model. And the best part is all organic. Right? It's not something that people wrote and designed a thesis and designed a paper. This is how communities are built. It's all organic. So I'm extremely amazed and by watching Cosmos ecosystem every day.
Yeah.